All right. Hello, everybody. Hi, Facebook and Instagram. I was able to get on both. I'm so excited about that. So, special shout out to Stream Machine ATL. If you have any audio visual streaming needs, reach out to them. They're amazing. So, Stream Machine ATL, I'm going to drop their information in the comments in just a second. But thank you guys for joining me tonight. Oh, my goodness. I could not wait for today. So welcome to the Men and Divorce panel discussion. I've been promoting it for the last, I'll say 2.5 weeks. And during this time, we're going to have discussions about men and divorce. And I'm going to dig in a little bit as to how this whole panel came about. Why did I come up with this panel? So before I do that, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Chidima Anusium, also known as Author Chi. I am a transformational speaker, best-selling author, and life coach. My passion is honestly to empower women that have gone through painful experiences, helping them remove those obstacles and live a life without limitations. Joyful, peaceful, happy life. So that's what I do. Okay. Now, you may be asking, well, if you empower women, why in the world are you doing a panel for men? Like, how did that come about? So I'm going to explain that. So I noticed, well, no, recently I went through a situation where, I went through a breakup of a relationship. And I was devastated because I thought it was a romantic relationship. I was devastated because I thought that, it was going to work out, and it didn't. And I was devastated. You guys been through breakups before. I'm sure you can understand. And in the midst of like my tears and just feeling, down about the situation, I heard the Lord speak to me and says, did you realize that most of the men that you've dated, or even acquaintances, most of them were divorced or been through a divorce? And honestly, I didn't really think about it like that, because I feel like, at this age, a lot of the men that I've met have, the probability of being divorced is pretty high, because as you go up in age, that's a possibility. I also think I gravitate to divorcees in general, just women or men, because we have like a similar experience, and we get each other. Like, I know what you went through. I know how that feels, so we have a connection there. So I just looked at it like that. But when the Lord began to speak to me, and anybody that knows me knows that my faith is the foundation for everything I do. It's what drives me to, have this passion to want to heal lives. And so he said, well, I've purposely been putting these men in your path. And I'm like, oh, I guess I didn't think about that. He said, did you notice any patterns with them? And I thought about it. I said, well, yeah, like when I think about it, the men that really didn't do their heart work, that really didn't do the work to heal from their pain, I noticed that they were replaying some of those painful experiences in this new relationship with me. So they were bringing that old baggage, that hurt, that unforgiveness, that trust, lack of trust, all of that into this relationship, and it was causing some friction. He said, okay, well, if you experience that and you're on the receiving end of that, and it did not feel good to you, what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, what can I do about it? I mean, I'm a woman. I don't know what men go through in their divorces and all that. I don't know what those emotions are. I know I help women, overcome divorce, but I really never thought about, coaching men in that way. And so I didn't really know what I could do about it. And he began to speak to me. He said, you don't have to coach them, but you can create a platform for men to coach each other. And I'm like, oh, okay. So in the midst of my pain, something beautiful came out of it. And that's why I'm real, I will say this to anybody I come in contact with. When you have gone through a painful experience, lean into it. Find out what is in it that you need to learn, because there's a lesson in it. There's a blessing in it, right? And I could have been in that funk and just, oh my God, I feel sorry for myself. And I went through this breakup and I wasn't in tune to the purpose of why I went through that breakup. Why did I go through this experience? It was to birth this out. Divorce it's a very taboo topic. People don't like to talk about divorce. I have people unfollow me because I start talking about divorce. They're like, I don't want to hear that. But if you think about it, 40% of marriages 40 to 50% of marriages end in divorce. So that's a good number of us that are impacted by divorce. So why don't we want to talk about it? Why is it so hush hush when it's hurting our families, your friends, your parents may have been, gone through divorce. It, each and every one of us in some way, shape, or form has experienced divorce, whether it's directly or indirectly. Why are we not talking about it? Why aren't we helping people heal by educating them and telling them, I know it hurt. You don't have to keep living in that hurt. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. I went through it myself, and now I'm living my best life. Also, educating people on when you come in contact with a divorced person, this is how you can help them and aid them in their healing process, and not judge them and not label them and say, oh, you failed at marriage. You don't have a right to tell anybody else how to handle a relationship. Let's get rid of those myths and those perceptions, those false perceptions about divorce, and let's get real about it. Because the moment we get real about it and have more conversations about it, the more we can prevent it, right? The more we can have healthier dating practices, we can be healthier individuals, we can be whole. So when we go into a new situation, a new relationship, we can do it right the next time. Or even if you're not interested in doing it, being in a new relationship, you're just a better version of yourself for doing so, right? So this is why I'm doing this panel, and I really encourage both men and women to tune in. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff tonight. I'm so excited. So enough of my rambling, because you guys know I do that very well. And it's not about me tonight. I am here to learn with everybody else tonight from these dynamic panelists, these men that I'm going to bring on today. I have Steve Schupner. I'm sorry, Steve. I said I was going to get that right tonight.
It's all right. You did well.
So Steve is from Stowe, Vermont. Steve is a financial advisor. He's also a certified life coach. He has the U-Tree coaching services that he offers. He helps men walk through the divorce and that path of recovery, but he also helps people that are in relationships. If they're disengaged in any way, he helps them to get that re-engaged. He's a father of 3. Is that right? Is it boys, girls?
3 boys.
3 boys. Oh, God bless your soul. Are they? How many
You hear
years
me.
apart are they?
You definitely hear me. They're tough.
Did you want to shout out to your boys tonight?
Yeah, Gavin, Grant, and Grady. I hope you're well. They're in hiding right now, so they don't make any noise.
Oh my goodness, I know that all too well. I had to drop my daughter off so she doesn't come and start messing with my laptop here. But okay, so you enjoy hiking, cycling, fishing, and writing. Correct. Mm-hmm. Which one of those are your favorite?
I think hiking is. And especially when I went through my divorce, getting out in nature, it was a process that I used. I went on 14 hikes the 14 days before my final divorce date. And it really helped me get a clear head. And I think with men, especially, it's good to get out and moving.
I love that. You're going to tell us more about that, right, Steve?
I can.
Yes. Okay. Well, awesome. And so let's get to it, because like I said, it's not about me. I want to hear more about what you have to offer. I want to know more about your experience with divorce, because you have been through a divorce, but now you are a certified divorce coach. So talk me through that process. Like, how did that happen?
Well, it was a long process in the making. I originally from Maryland. I moved my family to Vermont. And for many reasons I'm not going to share here, but I had found myself in a divorce a year later. And here I was living in a town where I knew virtually no one, a long distance away from my family and my friends. And I was in a job that required me to commute an hour to work each way. And when I was experiencing a divorce, it literally gutted me open. And I made a choice at that point in time that I was going to stand in my power and face some things. And one of the things I did was to realign some of my priorities so I could be with my boys during the 50% of the time I had them, and take a gap year where I only worked enough to pay my bills. And I hired a coach that really walked me through all the healing elements that I needed to go through. And in that 1 year, I had learned that I not only needed to grieve and heal from my own divorce, but in order for me to do that, I had to grieve and heal from my parents' divorce, which is something that I never did. And through those two processes, I found out that I used to see divorce as taboo. And it defined me in one way, and in other ways, it was destroying me. And I chose to see the beautiful side, which you said earlier, there's a blessing in it, to have it actually strengthen me. I did not set out to be a divorce coach. Through all my work as a financial planner, I had experience working with individuals, motivating them to change habits and behaviors. And I wanted to explore something different. So I started to enter the world of life coaching and executive coaching. But what fell in my plate were men going through divorce. And I like to say the universe put them there. And it was a truly beautiful time. And I find myself now being able to share many, many different perspectives to help them.
Oh, I think that's so awesome. You said something about you had to heal from your parents' divorce. Can you
Hmm.
tell me about that? Because I think for some of us that haven't been through a divorce, we maybe had parents that did. How does that impact us and how do we heal from that?
Right. So I was 10 years old. My parents went out for their wedding anniversary. I stayed at my aunt's house. We had just moved into a new house. We had sold our house. They built a new house. We had moved all of our things in, but my parents hadn't settled on the mortgage. And some argument must have happened during that anniversary dinner. And before I knew it, I was with my aunt for a week and we came back and we found out that we were going through a divorce. And not only did the parents go through the divorce, but my parents did not settle in their home. So we immediately became homeless. So I was going from grandparent to grandparent, back and forth. At my fourth grade year, I went to 4 different schools. I went to 9 different schools through my 12 years. It was in constant motion. And as a kid, one of the things that you do is you want to be strong for your parents, and you don't want to disappoint them because you know they're hurting. I saw both my parents weep. And so I never took the time to grieve my own divorce or my own childhood divorce. And I kept giving to my parents. I kept giving to my parents. And back in this day in 1979, there weren't a lot of child psychologists tuned into this. It was something that I carried with me until my marriage, and I made a deep vow not to get divorced during my marriage, and that of course influenced me as well. That vow drove me to be eventually loyal to my wife, not a loving partner.
Wow, that's really deep. I like what you said about I vowed not to be a divorce. And I want to let people know that a lot of people that have gone through divorce didn't never thought they would be in that seat. They never thought that they would be in that position, but life happened. And so
Mhm.
that's why again it's important to have these conversations because you'll say, "Oh, that will never be me. I will never do this and I will never do that." I said it too and it happened to me. And so I like that you brought that up, Steve, with that piece. Um, how did you know? Like, what was that moment where you said, "You know what? I really need to heal." Like, what was
Mhm.
some of those emotions you were experiencing that made you like want to reach out for help? Because, in my
Mhm.
opinion, I don't think men reach out for help as much as women do.
Mhm.
And how will they know when it's time? What does that feel like?
Right. Well, and you're absolutely right. There aren't as many platforms available, and men do not reach out for help. We've been taught since we were kids to carry the burdens on our shoulders, tough it up. I would talk to my family and my friends. It was almost like them giving me a pat on the butt, saying it's going to be okay. And uh, and then when you go through the actual divorce process, so much focus is actually on the contractual separation. So men tend to put their focus into their finances, how are they going to retain assets, how are they going to work with a parenting plan, and then that becomes the number one distraction. They may go off and visit a therapist. Um, Therapy is certainly valid, but I like to say that men aren't broken because of divorce. Therapy helps, but it also can put them in situations where they feel like they're being judged. And so, uh, for me personally, uh, there's a saying I like to say that lessons in life will repeat themselves, and they'll repeat themselves with greater magnitude until they're learned. And my divorce was the tipping point on the lessons that I had to have for myself. The pain got too bad. The pain of not feeling good enough, the pain of wondering what you did wrong, questioning why your efforts weren't there. Um, and and there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of bitterness, a lot of resentment. And when you don't have, when I'm sitting in Vermont away from other distractions, I couldn't distract myself by going out to hang out with the guys. I didn't have guys. Uh, I was by myself, and it was, looking back, it was the best thing that I could have done. Uh, but the pain when you're by yourself, the pain gets to the point where you have to face it. And you said earlier that your job is to lean into these transitions and these tough times, and that's what I did.
Very good. So, what would you tell that man that, maybe has gone through a divorce and say, I'm good, they're already in the next relationship or whatever, and they don't know that they still have that little something in them, that layer of unresolved hurt in their heart? Like, how would you help them identify that? Or what are some of the signs
Mm.
that they can kind of identify that they still need some healing?
Yeah, well, I mean, the only time that you really identify is if you go through reflection and making sure that you have the time to sit back and reflect. I mean, if you're going to grow a building taller, you have to dig the foundation deeper. So a lot of men won't find out until it's too late that they're in the same type of pattern where they're relying on another person to fulfill their needs so they feel good about themselves rather than fulfilling their needs themselves. So whether they're um, finding themselves in certain power struggles with their wife, or they're finding themselves in power struggles with their boss, any of these things could be um, indications. A lot of times men we're really good at swallowing pain. And when we swallow pain, you can feel it in your body. You'll feel it in your throat. You'll feel it in your heart. You'll feel it in your stomach. And our bodies give us a great clue. It's almost its way of saying, your soul's way of saying, hey, it's time to wake up and pay attention, because I'm giving you disease, and if you don't do anything, you're going to get disease. And it takes a lot of work, because our ego and our lower self is what drives us into seeing the world the way we are, not the way it is. So if anybody goes through a divorce, I really recommend that you sit down with a divorce coach, or some trusted person that can help you, and and can be honest and truthful with you, so you can get an idea that you need some additional help.
Oh, that's really good, Steve. Oh my God, I could talk to you for hours. This is so, so good. And I have some more questions, to ask you. But I do want to quickly just, ask you if there's anything else that's really pressing. What message do you want to get out to men today that have gone through divorce and even a breakup? Because sometimes breakup is just as painful as a divorce. And I
Mhm.
don't want to leave the guys out that maybe never been married, but they were hurt from someone or a situation they've been in for years.
Mhm.
So what message would you tell them today?
Yeah, well, there's feelings that you're going to have. There are going to be feelings of anger, bitterness, resentment, frustration, and your tendency is to say that she caused this to me. And no one causes you to be angry. You cause yourself to be angry. We don't run around and say, oh, it's my wife's fault that I'm so happy, right? We don't say that. We say it's my wife's fault that I'm miserable. And if you can look back and start to take 100% responsibility for what you're experiencing, that is the first step. And once you're willing to do that, then everything starts to unfold much easier.
Oh, that's so deep. It's not my wife's fault that I'm happy. So it's not her fault that I'm angry. Ooh, that's a whole thing right there. I got to post that tomorrow. That was awesome. So, Steve, I'm going to have you join us back in just a few minutes.
Sure.
And I want to introduce, thank you so much. I want to introduce our next panelist, Martin Dye. Martin, welcome to the panel. I know you're trying to get your camera up. So I gotta shout out Martin because we don't see you, Martin. Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
See, you know
Okay.
what? You can't take people anywhere. It's certain people can't take places.
There we go.
Go. So Martin's my brother, so we're gonna cut up because that's my brother. But Martin is a I call him the fitness guru because he is like the fitness guy for me. He's coached me virtually on fitness, and I'll call him like, yo, how many reps do I need to do of such and such? And what protein drink do I need to drink? And he's amazing when it comes to fitness. He's also a husband and a father and a big brother to me, of course. And he has an amazing journey of, how he went through a divorce and then remarried. So I really want to dig into that, Martin, on what that journey was about. But first of all, tell me a little bit about your experience with divorce. What did you go through and what
A little bit about my experience. I got married at a young age. So I ended up getting married at the age of 22. And that was into my first enlistment in the Marine Corps. You know, I was just like Steve, thought this was going to last forever. I wasn't going to be divorced. I always wanted to be a family man, have children. And lo and behold, come to find out it wasn't all sweetness, sugar, spices, all the things nice. When trouble actually hit, then that's when I found out what I was really made of.
Okay, so when you say trouble hit, was that like during your marriage, or you felt like more of that trouble was after your marriage when you were trying to heal from divorce? Like, what was that like for you?
More so during the marriage, you know, thinking that I was doing everything that I could. And lo and behold, when you're hit with adultery, you know, when you feel betrayed, what will be my next step? And I think that's what really put me into that decline stage to actually go to divorce.
That's deep. And we're gonna talk about a little bit about what you just said about what you experienced as a man, because some people tend to think that divorces are usually the man's fault. Like he did something. It's always his fault. So we're gonna talk about what that reality really is. So after you went through your divorce, did you kind of seek help right away? Or what was kind of your coping mechanism for kind of healing through that process?
No, I did not seek help right away. You know, typical guy thing. I'm gonna swallow this, I'm gonna eat it, I'm gonna move on. And I found myself indulging in unhealthy things, you know, start hanging out more, hitting nightclubs, drinking, really doing things that I typically never even really did. And then I found myself bed hopping, sleeping from woman to woman to woman nonstop. So I was really putting myself in an unhealthy situation.
Yeah, and I think I hear a lot of guys say that, and but for them, they say, well, I'm just doing me. I feel free. I'm just out here. But is that freedom or is that hurt? Like, really?
That is really hurt. We feel as though it's freedom because he's like, oh yeah, I was married, now I'm divorced, I got my freedom. But it's really hurt because we take something instead of dealing with it and we just put something else on top of it. It's just like having a cut. If you only put a band-aid over the cut, it won't heal. You have to treat that cut in order for the healing process to begin. So that's all we're doing. We're just covering up with different things instead of actually just dealing with the hurt.
Okay, so you just kind of reveal some telltale signs that a man may still be hurt, may still be. Some of you guys are like, I don't care about it. I'm having a good time. I'm not hurt. I'm not talking to you. Okay. But for those of you that are doing these things, and some men overwork. They just bury themselves into work. That's all they do because that's the only way they know to cope with it. But I love what Steve said earlier about the grieving process and men really allowing themselves, fellas, shed a tear. You gonna survive. Okay, cry it out, talk it out. Like, I know society doesn't give you permission to show any type of vulnerability for your mental state, for the state of the people that you love, for your children. Do yourself a favor and allow yourself to go through the healing and grieving process so that you can really address the hurt that you have inside. So, Martin, after you went through that and you're like, yo, I'm just out here having a good time, sort of, you meet your now wife, Nicole. Okay. Now, when you met Nicole, were you still in that frame of mind, like, I'm still just out here having fun, I'm not trying to be married again? Like, what was your mindset at that time?
My mindset was still exactly what you just said. I wasn't thinking about trying to be in a relationship again, let alone even thinking about marriage. That was one of the things that was far from my mind because I didn't want history to repeat itself. So for me, I was really staying away from that. I didn't want to be involved with no relationship. The moment that a chick mentioned relationship, I was gone. So that was far from it. So once I actually met Nicole, reconnected, the moment I saw her step off the airplane, it was instant. And I fought it the whole time. It's like, no, nope, nope. But it was something inside of me, which I knew it was the Lord telling me, like, this is the one. I'm like, no, I'm not being involved with no relationship, not going there. And I think that's where we began to battle with, because if we do come across somebody that we feel as though we can reconnect, that hurt, that pain comes back up. And now we are in a battle.
No, that's deep, and that's reality. And I think women, we go through that too. We're just like, I'm not trying to get my heart. I don't want to be hurt again. And there's some women that really meet good men that want to love them, and they make it so tough on them. You know what I mean? And so to your point, yeah, it's because there's still that hurt there, and it's like afraid to really like allow yourself to have a new experience. Like, truly believe just because it didn't work before doesn't mean it's not going to ever work, right? So what was it about Nicole? Because she's fabulous. I know her. Okay, that's a fine woman right there. Okay. What was it about Nicole that made you say, you know what? How did she aid in that healing process? Because there's a certain amount of healing you can do by yourself. Mm-hmm. It's a certain limit you can get to, but then there's another level when you actually have somebody in your life that's going to challenge some areas and trigger you. Oh. How does she help you heal? What does she do?
The things that she aided me in was, I want to say, reassurance. She let it be known right from the beginning when we decided to go into a relationship that we in this for good. I got your back. I'm not going anywhere. If we run into trouble, we gonna handle it together. And I never had that in my first marriage. My first marriage was more individualized, if I can say that. You do your thing, I do my thing, we come back into the middle. But this was the first time of being in a relationship where now it's involved in one. We're on the same beat, the same drum, and we're working together to achieve the same thing. And once she really was able to break that outer layer, that's when I really began to start opening up.
It was something you told me when we talked before. You said she told you, I'm not your ex-wife. Like she was like, just in case you get it twisted, and just in case the enemy trying to be in your head right now, let me remind you, I'm not her. And I thought that was so powerful because what it does, it separates the experiences where, yeah, you're not her. So let me do this differently. Can you share more about that?
Yes, it was that instant. So just like in any marriage, any relationship, you're gonna have disagreements. So she did something, and it just infuriated me. And it's not in my nature to become loud or anything, especially towards her. But during that instance, I did. And the moment that she said to me, she said, hold on. She said, first of all, I'm not your ex-wife. So stop taking out what happened there on me.
Mm.
So, I had to step back for a minute. I was like, like, hold on, let me grasp a hold of this. Let me really begin to see what is really going on. And when she told me that, I really couldn't say anything because she was absolutely right. I cannot make her as my ex-wife and make her pay for the things that happened in my last marriage. That's unfair. And without dealing with the hurt and really thinking that, how us as guys, we can think that we have overcame something because it's been so long and it's in the past, I'm over it. But technically, we're really not because it comes up in different areas that we have no idea about. So now, being with that, I caught myself really seeking for help and asking for her to forgive me because she's not my ex-wife. And I didn't want to make the same mistakes that I did back then now.
So tell me because we're going to bring Steve back in just a minute, but tell me, how did you eventually begin your healing part? Like, how did you go to therapy? Was it a combination of was it after you met your wife? Like, what was that journey like for you?
It was a little combination of both. I started going before, and I stopped. And then once I really got with Nicole, then that's when I realized I really needed to seek out help. And of course, you know me, sis, I'm the type where I'm going to try to handle it on my own. Me handling it on my own would have led me into another divorce. So I really had to swallow my pride and really go into this whole counseling thing. And the moment that I got into counseling, the first thing that it was a female counselor that she told me, I don't care what she did. We're here to discuss about what you did.
Mm.
That was mind blowing because anybody I talked to, oh, she didn't do this. She didn't do that. She did it. But what about me? And the moment that we really dealt with me and the things that I didn't do that I thought I was doing is where healing came and took place. And I was able to move on and become who I am now.
That's awesome. Oh my goodness. I gotta bring Steve back. So let's just have this conversation. So come on back, Steve. We're
All
gonna have
right.
this conversation because I want us to get into the meat of that. And the blame game. Why is that dangerous to do? So Steve, how would you weigh in? Why is it important that, because I hear it all the time. My wife did this, my ex-wife did this, my ex-wife did this. What is the danger in doing that?
Well, it's just a way of hiding. When our feelings put us in a situation where we have to face them, it's very easy. It's almost a cop-out to turn around and put it on whomever that you think is causing that blame. So it's a natural tendency. I mean, our brains are wired for fighting or flighting, but we don't ever face it. And so people's tendency is to bring out their lower self, their ego self, which is the part of us that creates these beautiful stories. And we can be quite convincing to ourselves that she really screwed up my life. Maybe your divorce was just not meant to be, or maybe it was a period of time where you both were meant to learn from each other.
No,
It's
I
possible.
completely agree. And I feel like the fastest way to heal, if you start with yourself. And even though the other person may have been the primary aggressor and they did things, you two have an ownership that you have to take in that breakdown. It wasn't 100% one person. And the faster you can realize that and do the work, you'll be in a better position, when it comes to healing.
Can I add one more thing, Chidima?
Sure.
One of the exercises I have my guys do is I have them write a letter that they're never going to mail that describes their relationship from the time they met to where they are today. So the man will write it to his wife, everything that he saw that happened. And then a day or two later, I challenge him to write another letter, this time from his wife to him over the same time period.
Ooh.
And a lot of men have a very, very hard time writing that letter. It forces you to see things through her eyes.
Oh my goodness, that's a whole
Wow.
Martin, what you got to say about that?
Wow, that was deep. Like to sit up there and to have them write a letter that they had never seen to really see. Whoa, he took me back on that one. I was like, man, that's deep right there, Steve.
Uh,
Yeah, very good. Very. I mean, women. I'm sure we could take a page from that book as well. Um, so I guess one of the questions is, and one of the myths that I put out there was like, divorce is always the man's fault. I really want to hear from you guys because I know you probably heard it when you went through it. Like, what did you do? Because I know you did. So I know it wasn't her. She's too sweet, right? What is the answer?
Oh man. So what is the answer? Well, since you know how it is with Nicole, just having that warm embrace feeling that she gives, it definitely helps me out from day to day. And going through the issues that I went through and the rebuilding stage, I guess you really want to say, was one of the most difficult times. And when you go through a rebuilding stage, most people don't want to stick with there because that's a challenging time because your emotions are here, 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 here. But to have her there with me 100%, like we say, team die, ride or die all day, that she been there the whole time, I'm a truly blessed man. So for me, giving everything to her is absolutely what I cherish and what I love to do. The moment that I wake up in the morning to the moment that I lay down, she is just a true blessing. That's what really helped me to move past the hurt, the pain, and to enter into the healing process and really to feel and know what love is.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And I know you're saying all that, because you want her to fix you those pork chops tonight. You trying to butter her up. But no, that's beautiful, and that's a really, really true statement. Is having that love and having that person that's really there with you to say, I'm gonna love you through this. That means everything, right? That's like the peace in your storm, the calm in your storm. Steve, is divorce usually the man's fault 90% of the time?
No, and I absolutely can't stand the word fault, because fault implies it's a two-directional word. It says I'm blaming her, that's fault. Or if I accept fault, then I receive my own guilt, my own judgment of myself. The only thing that we have is that we're 100% responsible for the role we played in our marriage, and she is 100% responsible for the role that she played in the marriage. And our responsibility from this day forward is to be able to do really three key things. If you want to ever move on from a marriage, there's three key foundational things that you have to do. One is judge or hold off judging when you want to judge, right? When you want to judge yourself or you want to judge her, hold off. The second thing is forgive when you don't want to forgive, right? That's a tough thing. The third thing is to surrender and accept what is. When we judge or we don't forgive, we're just like holding a sword right over our head and stabbing ourselves as we're reaching out to stab her. And it holds us in our pain body. Ooh. So the word fault, if you find yourself using the word fault, it means that, just as Martin said, he's 100% responsible, right? That was his awakening moment. I'm 100% responsible. It's not anybody's fault. It's just the way that you two were brought together. The universe put you together, and the pretenses for that may not have been perfect. And you did the best you could with what you knew and what you had. And stop judging yourself and move on.
That's so good. So good. The pain lobby. Woo! Yet again, another good soundbite. So I know there's people out there that probably have some questions. We're probably not, for those of you that are tuning on Instagram, this may run a little bit over, just a little bit, because I really want to make sure we hear from our audience. I have more questions, but I want to hear from you guys. So we will continue. So if you have questions, go ahead and drop in the chat now. And we want to answer your questions. Now, I know some of you may be asking, what about children in divorce? What about this, that, and that? We're going to get there, okay? That's my next panel. We're going to talk about the co-parenting and the children and that aspect of it all, because that's a whole different conversation. And I know some of you may be dealing with, co-parenting issues where, you and your ex-wife are not seeing eye to eye. And like, how do you handle that? How do you handle that modified time with your children that you were used to seeing them whenever you want? Now it's modified. How's that affecting you, impacting you? And even the legal aspect of it, not really probably have ruled in your favor as a father. How do you deal with that? So we're going to talk about that on our next panel. But if you have questions like that tonight, feel free to ask them. So I don't see any questions coming in. I can continue to ask the questions that I have while I'm waiting for. I'm sorry. Hold on one second, you guys. Okay. We have Taffy Dollar join. Well, how about that? Welcome, Taffy Dollar. So another question I want to ask you, after going through a divorce, did your views on marriage change? And if so, how? So Martin, you're married now. So why don't we have your views on marriage changed?
My views on marriage has changed because of the fact that from the moment where I got married to going through the divorce, it went downhill. I didn't value marriage anymore because of the fact that I didn't think that it was for me, that this stuff is only for certain people. I tried it, I did it, it didn't work. And now being back in a marriage, I think it's one of the most beautiful things. My view has changed a lot about it. And, I would tell anybody who thinking about marriage, to really invest in themselves, to really know themselves, and to really know the person that they're going to be involved with. I wish that I could have followed my own advice back then. You know how it is, I was a fool, rushed in, and it didn't work out. Part of life lessons learned. But I tell anybody, really know who you're getting to know, who you're planning on spending the rest of your life with, because one moment you can think it's this person, and in a blink of an eye, it can be somebody totally different.
No, I completely agree. So same question to you, Steve. Have your views on marriage changed at all? And if so, how?
I don't think my views on marriage have changed. I've been seeing Samantha for coming up on 3 years. Her ability to partner with me has shown me what a real partnership is that fits me. Not that my ex was bad. It's just what we do together fits us. That's very exciting for me. And I feel that when I came through into this relationship with a clear foundation, a clearer mind, that I was able to attract the person that had these qualities, whereas before I hadn't attracted that. And Martin, I think Martin should teach like pre-marriage classes, because everything that he's saying is right on point. I mean, the ability to have these open conversations and be able to actually actualize together as a couple instead of worrying about actualizing yourself. That lifts, when you lift each other up, that's what lifts you up individually. And I see that happening in Martin's relationship, and you're blessed to have that. You're absolutely blessed to have that.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much.
Working on that pork chop tonight. You want mashed potatoes too?
Hey, I'm trying to get the whole 9 yards.
I forgot you don't eat meat. I forgot. You like to do something like that. I don't know what. So anyway, we have a question, okay, from Chris Jolly. I love that name, Chris Jolly. That sounds so like Christmassy. Okay, so Chris says, how do you handle a lack of closure from your divorce, from your past relationship? Who wants to take that question?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know when there is closure until you define when there's closure. You don't wait on her to give you permission to have closure. The closure is there for you to take. And if you don't feel you have closure, then there's something there that's preventing you from reaching closure. So the key would be uncovering what that thing is. What is it? And what's tying you to her? Is it jealousy? Is it some sort of obsession? Is it some quality that you liked in her that you don't want to let go? But really explore that and find out why that's important to you.
Absolutely.
And, and I have to agree with you on that, Steve. You really have to dig deep into that, because what is, like you said, what is really a definition of closure? And you really have to see, because if you feel as though there's something still there, then that means you probably wasn't doing everything that you could to try to make it work. That's why you feel as though closure is not really there for you. Or maybe you feel as though you need an explanation. But those things right there, something that what we stated earlier about seeking help to try for you to reach closure.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes when I notice people have difficulty with closures, I don't know what you guys' view on this, but I believe in soul ties. And so sometimes there's a soul tie there still with that person that's like, it's kind of keep pulling you back, even though you know that you don't want to be in a relationship, it keeps pulling you back into it. So from any of you all, is there any advice for a man that still has a soul tie? How does he break that so he can be free?
Oh, I mean, that's great. I mean, I call it courting. It's the same thing. So, two people, a female and a male in a relationship, or whoever's in a relationship, they'll unwind from that relationship at their own pace, and they don't necessarily unwind together. So if the female is unwinding faster than the male typically finds himself trying to court to her in whatever emotional way he can, even through arguments. If the female, in my personal divorce, I was behind my ex-wife in terms of reaching closure. But then eventually I reached a point where I surpassed her, and I find that then she's coming back and tries to court with me. One of the key things is to learn these habits. These are unconscious habits that are happening to you. Recognize it and then practice setting a boundary. And the boundary may require a hard no. No, I'm not going to talk to you. No, I'm not going to talk to your family. But maybe it's just a no for now. It's not a no forever.
No, yeah, it's absolutely, especially when you have children together. That's a whole nother thing, because now, as much as you want to exit this person's life, you're tied forever, you know what I mean, together. And that could also trigger some of those past emotions and, that recording of the relationship. So wow, this was great. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Martin. Steve Martin.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. This is so valuable. I hope that the participants out there, I hope you got a lot from this. I sure as heck learned a lot from this. And I wanted to make sure I gave time to Steve and Martin to kind of share, how do people get in touch with you? They like what you're hearing. They want to get in touch with you. They want to continue to connect with you. How can they do so? So Steve, you can share with us a little bit about, Tree, and kind of how participants can reach out to you.
Yeah, you can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram at youtree coaching, and it's YOUTREE coaching. Also the website, youtreecoaching.com. And one of the things that I'm rolling out right now is a series of online divorce support group sessions that last until October 6th. They're weekly, they're free, and I'm committed to making sure that men have a platform to reach some sort of support. I can put myself out there. I need them to come. So if you go on my webpage and you look under the tribe, which is called the New Wolf Tribe, you can find the calendar of topics and register for anyone that you think fits you.
I love it. What does U-tree mean? What is that?
Well, there's an actual tree called the yew tree. It's YEW. And it's the oldest living organism on Earth. The oldest one is 1,500 years old. And what it does is it does unique things, like it roots down into its own internal rot to find strength for growth. Ooh. If it falls over, it will reroot itself in the ground. It will produce pesticides to fend off insects, and it's made itself very sustainable. So the yew tree is the same premise, but instead of talking about the YEW tree, we're talking about the YOU tree.
So deep. Wow. I would never have guessed that. I've never heard of a yew tree before, but that is amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Steve. And thank you for joining us tonight. I told Steve this is the first of many conversations. I'll be bringing him back on for more of our panel discussions. Again, for those of you that tune in late, Steve is a certified divorce coach. He's stationed out of Stowe, Vermont. Has been doing this for over 20 years, Steve?
Well, I've been doing financial planning for 20 years. I've been doing coaching for a little over 3.
3 years. Okay. All right. Very good. Martin, tell people how to get in touch with you, and what do you have some projects going on. So I want you to share with us what you've been working on, how people can stay in touch with you.
All right, well, you can stay in touch with me on my Instagram. It's called Body by Die. And fitness is my life. I absolutely love it. And one of the things that working on, where a lot of people are having problem with, is eating. And I deal with it all the time with my clients, that they sit up here and they binge because they feel as though eating certain foods and stuff they're missing out on, that they really want this and want that. So what me and my family are planning on doing, we're gonna do a cooking series, and it's gonna be called Cooking with the Dyes. So we're gonna show how to make simple, delicious meals. Even kids can get involved. My 15-year-old daughter actually cooks and makes some of these meals as well. So we're going to show you how simple and delicious this is, that you can sit up here and enjoy pizza, cheesecake, different other things that you do not have to give up on. It's just a certain way how to prepare it and how to cook it.
You said pizza. You had me on pizza. We got a thing going. I love me some pizza. So yeah, that's exciting that you can eat what you love and still, do it in a healthy way. Well, Steve and Martin, thank you so much for
Yes,
joining
thank
me
you.
tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. More to come. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I know I did. Please share it. It's going to be on my page on Facebook. For the duration. So feel free to share it with your friends that probably missed it. And tune in for part 2, where we talk about co-parenting, children, all of that kind of stuff. And if you are a male, again, that's going through a situation where you're having co-parenting challenges with your ex, we're going to have those conversations. So you're going to want to be a part of it. All right. So follow Arthur Chi on Instagram and Facebook. That's at Arthur Chi on Instagram and Facebook. I will see you all later. Have a good night.
Yes, thank you.
Nice.